Welcome to the Stop School and Community Violence TTA program. We're pleased to have you this Wednesday afternoon for most of us, and on the West Coast Wednesday morning. My name is James Stark, part of the LISC Safety and Justice team. This is the specialized TTA grant program to advance school-based CVI approaches. This is part of our webinar series to highlight opportunities for schools and community violence intervention organizations and approaches to increase safety both in schools and in the communities. We have an amazing webinar today. It's going to be led by Catherine from the Urban Peace Institute. They are a phenomenal program based in LA that is doing and has been doing work in LA and with schools and communities for many years, as well as a really great panel of folks that they brought on to talk about how schools can partner with CVI organizations. So I'm just going to do a very brief intro and then turn it over to Catherine. Next slide, please. We'll get the next slide. All right, so before we get too far, we want to thank both the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Office of Justice Programs for helping to fund this work. As always with these webinars, the opinions, findings, and conclusions expressed in this webinar are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of the Department of Justice. Next slide, please. So as far as housekeeping, you'll see that the chat is open. We encourage you to put in the chat your name, organization. We want to just say hello, welcome, and know who's in the audience. If you have questions, there's also a Q&A box. Feel free to put in questions there. We're going to have some time at the very end for Q&A. The webinar is being recorded. We will be posting the video or the recording on our Stop School-Based Resources webpage. I've dropped that in the chat. I'm going to provide a little bit more about that at the very end as well. But I'm much looking forward to this webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine and the Urban Peace Institute.
Thank you for the introduction, James. Again, my name is Catherine Celais. I am a part of the training and technical assistance team here with the Urban Peace Institute. I'm excited to bring this discussion of partnership between community violence intervention and schools to a wider platform. This is a full circle moment for me. As James mentioned, I previously worked in public education on a high school campus for almost 10 years, and as a staunch student advocate, I understand the importance of collaboration work, but also the challenges that come with bringing in new ideas, new resources, and services to a school. So this is truly an investment of your time, your advocacy, showing up for your students. So I appreciate you being here today and discussing the foundational steps for community violence intervention in schools. Today, our discussion will center on how do schools identify and build partnerships with community violence interventionist partners and to collaboratively support students and their families impacted by community violence. Our panelists will offer insight on how to identify core concepts and goals of CVI organizations, understand the importance of collaboration between schools and CVI partners, learn how CVI partners can support violence reduction and prevention in schools, and increase knowledge on how to integrate CVI strategies in schools. Next slide. So who is the Urban Peace Institute and why have we been invited to host this webinar? The Urban Peace Institute is a national social justice nonprofit organization working with communities across the country to develop and implement policy, system, and practice solution. What does our work look like in communities? It's our Smart Justice team building partnerships through the Youth Justice Coalition. It's our community safety and health team putting boots on the ground through their work with school safety collaboratives. It's our community violence intervention specialist training community and law enforcement to collaboratively promote safety. And at the center of all of our work is identifying needs and tailoring solutions that are community driven. A crucial part of our work is partnering with community violence intervention agencies. These are community members who know their neighborhood best, and our work cannot move forward without their diligence and dedication to safety. So what is community violence intervention, and why is it important to add to the school ecosystem? So community violence intervention uses evidence-informed strategies to reduce violence through tailored community-centered initiatives. It includes multidisciplinary partners and engages individuals and groups to prevent and disrupt cycles of violence and retaliation. We know that school has evolved into more than an educational setting for community. For many students, it may be the only time they get a full meal for the day. It may be the only place where there's a safe, trusted individual present. So the integration of CVI in a school adds dimension to the services it offers to the student body. The Urban Peace Institute works directly with community-based organizations that offer CVI strategies for school-aged residents. Some of our partners, such as Advocates for Peace and Urban Unity and Watts Life Car Club, provide safe passages in and around schools. Safe Passage ensures students get to and from school safely with the support of CVI partners present along the school route. Safe Passage helps to prevent and reduce gang intimidation, community and traffic violence, as well as other safety concerns. Our partner, Resilient Agency in the South Park community of Los Angeles, attends Community Safety Advisory Council meetings at the local school to offer resources and connect with community they serve to enhance the work they collectively do. These meetings serve as a space to identify community concerns and bridge resource gaps. Next slide. So this is just some of the work that our CVI partners are doing in Los Angeles, but keeping in mind the vast experiences of schools across the country, we have invited a panel of highly respected individuals to speak on their work with CVI in their communities. Today, we have Executive Director Terrence Staley and President Clayton Rosenberg, who actually is out sick today, so we're hoping he gets better quickly, but they are joining us with the Alliance of Concerned Men out in Washington, D.C. We have Troy Collier out in Racine Unified School District as a community connector, and Executive Director Javier Martinez of Arise and Go out in Los Angeles, California. So there is a lot of passion that goes into the work amongst these gentlemen. So I'm going to go ahead and let them give them a quick introduction. And we'll go ahead and start with Terrence. Can you go ahead and give us a quick introduction to your role and how long you've been doing the work?
All right, thank you, Catherine, and team. It's an honor to be in front of you all, practitioners, as well as individuals working in the school. My name is Terrence Staley, and I am the Executive Director / Janitor of the Alliance of Concerned Men. We are a public safety agency working in the District of Columbia and nationally. We're one of 53 organizations that have been identified by Biden administration as one of the 53 organizations across the nation doing this work from a public safety, community-based standpoint. We're also technical assistance providers for the Department of Justice for the CVI-PI grant that has been rolled out, and it is an honor to be in front of you today.
Thank you, Terrence. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Troy?
It'll be my pleasure. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me a part of this this webinar here today. It is definitely an honor for me too to be on here with like-minded individuals trying to affect change. But I am a community connector here in Racine Unified School District. I've done about 10 years of service within the school district. And as community connectors, we are literally the bridge between services within and outside of the school. Currently, we work inside the school, which gives us plenty of access to our students and work with them closely throughout the day, along with administration, teachers, and like I said, outside of the school, collaborators as well. I know that we will go into those different things later in more detail. But again, it's very nice to be here, and I'm willing to share my perspective on how we can affect change going forward and curb violence.
Thank you, Troy. Yes, definitely. Having you on a school campus just adds so much layers to this conversation. So thank you for being here. And next we have Javier Martinez with Arise and Go out here in LA.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and or afternoon, wherever you're at, whatever part of the country you're at, and just as always, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to, share a little bit of our experiences, from our experiences in the work and what we do here in the Harbor area in LA. So, once again, my name is Javier Martinez. I'm the executive director at Rise and Go. Rise and Go has been around for about 3 years. And our target population area is mostly based in Harbor City, but we do service the communities of Wilmington, San Pedro, and the Harbor Gateway also. We are a gang intervention agency, which is faith-based, and our target population is those that have been affected by gangs, violence, and the justice system. I've been in the work since 2009, ever since I came home from prison. I've done gang intervention on the streets, done case management. I've done school-based violence intervention and also hospital-based violence intervention. And now, with blessings from the man upstairs, I was able to open my own agency. And since 2021, we've been, here on the field in the LA Harbor doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. And just to really quickly connect us all, as you can see, we have Washington, Wisconsin out here in LA. Even though we're spread across the country, this work is all very interconnected. We all have so much to learn from each other. I know we connected with Troy through some of the training that we all did out there. And when your goals align, you're going to start running into a lot of the same people because we all have a passion for the work and dedication to moving violence intervention across the country and hopefully picking up on some of the best practices that we all share. So I'm very impressed. Thank you all for that quick introduction. If you can move to the next slide so we can get started with some key terms that we'll be discussing during our conversation today. And that's what you might have picked up on already is the cross-sector or multi-sector collaboration, which is a process where community stakeholders come together to collectively focus their expertise and resources on a complex issue of importance to a community they serve. And a credible messenger is a trusted individual with personal experience navigating systems, impacting individuals living in that community. Credible messengers serve as positive, culturally sensitive role models who provide guidance and support to youth. So we're going to go ahead and stop the slideshow here, and we are going to move into our panel discussion. And I'm going to kick us off with Troy. Troy, you had mentioned you're on a school campus. I know previously you have been on that campus for about 7 years, and it's a high school campus, right?
It is a K-8 campus.
K-8. Sorry about that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us an idea of what kind of CVI practices are in place, like services and resources on your school community?
First and foremost, the beginning piece is finding the right students and servicing the correct students. So we work with our administration to develop a report for students that are in need of any type of issues, circumstances that are affecting them at the schools. And so what we are able to do with our flexibility is we're able to have that time to speak with their parents, speak with the kids one-on-one, utilize sessions for mentoring. We do groups within, in and out of the school building. So the ease of access is definitely something that the kids can benefit from. On top of that, we have a connection between our school and our mental health service. So pretty much as community connectors, we're the bridge of services. So whether it's mental health, whether it's just needs as far as like supplies, mentoring groups, extracurricular activities, even the workforce. So we partner with the Racine County with those type of things with the jobs and the youth employment service in the summer. So we work with them throughout the year to get them ready for that type of servicing. And like throughout the year, we try to collaborate as much as we can to help every family one by one. And so pretty much there's an endless amount of opportunities for us to connect with our city collaborators, and there hasn't been anything that we haven't been able to do. We've just been opening up a lot of different opportunities for students and families. So it's a long list of things.
And who initially advocated to get that community connector program onto your school campus? Was it advocacy from the parents? Were the students asking for it? Administrators?
I think it kind of worked out organically. We had similar positions as in youth advocates, where we were working to basically, as it says, advocate for the students while they're here. But we needed to reach further heights. We need to talk to stakeholders. We need to talk to administrators, people who work at higher levels, just to try to affect change in a broader standpoint. So what happened was the community connector position was kind of birthed through those discussions. And what we wanted to do is place a community connector at every location here at our public schools, and we wanted to have that access that some schools had and other schools did not. And so just through conversations with our administration through the school system, and then partnering with the judicial system, and just kind of working together to provide more proactive solutions to affect change. And that's pretty much how the community connected position was birthed.
Thank you for that background info, Troy. Terrence and Javier, I know you both do work with youth gang intervention. Terrence, can you tell me what kind of resources and services are provided to students on a school campus?
And so we have conflict resolution and restorative justice as well. And when we talk about justice involved youth and young adults in schools, we talk about wraparound services and individuals that are set to connect the school administration with the community. And so we have a bond and a relationship with the direct schools in our neighborhoods where we serve, to where the same individuals that are identified by the school are the same ones we provide community-based services to. So for instance, in our credible conflict resolution that we do Tuesdays and Thursdays for age 5 to 13, and we're partnered with the middle school and the elementary school that are 2 blocks away from our office inside this specific community. And so we provide them conflict resolution and stipend based. And so they have the resources to be able to do small things like get something to eat, right? If they're not eating for that day. But also we monitor their behavior inside the school. And so through our communication of using these same individuals that they identified, that we know in the community are the ones needing the most resources, the victims of perpetrators of violence, they take that document to their teachers and to the school administration. And if they have met all the bells and whistles for that day or for that week, they bring that document to us, they get their full stipend. But if they haven't, they don't get the full stipend, right? And this was something that the school brought to us based off our relationship with the scholars that they have. And this is what public safety looks like. There's mentoring. We make them conflict resolution instructors as well. They teach their own classes. We initially started with 5 individuals inside the class. Now we have over 45. We service young men and women, and then we train them to be employees of ACM. So this is a village approach to public safety that we do. We're trying to reach the individuals and their siblings and their families, and we provide family support for their parents as a wraparound service to be able to connect those pieces and ensure that they're matriculating through the grades and the rate that they're supposed to. So it's not just about, we start with ending the violence, and then we go to, how are you considering those next to your sisters and brothers through cultural empowerment. And then we go to, how are you respecting individuals inside the community? Are you stepping outside that door? Are you giving your brothers and sisters more grace, even though they're not your blood brothers and sisters, but they're your brothers and sisters through experiences, right? And through the same trauma-related experiences that you go through every single day. And then we go to, okay, what are your grades looking like? So we're continuously trying to move them along, matriculate through a system that they may have not been successful with in the past. But through these different modalities, and it's important to not stop at one modality or two or three. You keep developing these things to further expand them because you want them to be the specific change agent as they go through these schools and community engage.
Right, and I think that's definitely something to touch on, the ripple effect of violence. It spreads pretty far, so really engaging the entire family unit is one of the strategies CVI interventionists use in their work that they do. So thank you for speaking on that. Javier, I know when we spoke previously, you had mentioned that you try to work with students who are already involved in some sort of maybe gang culture, some culture that is impacted by violence. How do you get resources and services to those students who may be on a school campus that may be impacting or be impacted by violence on school?
So yeah, so all our, all our services and everything we do at Arisable is based on the gang intervention model, right? That's how we approach the situations that we approach, and that's the target population that we service, right? We know that at schools, there's so many things going on, even apart from gangs and from violence. You have your drug issues, you have, acts of violence from kids that have nothing to do with gangs and all that. We pretty much focus on those that are living the lifestyle, and being that the schools that we service are in the same community that we service, and all our workers are from that same community, we pretty much have that relationship with the kids, even outside the school, especially the ones that are involved with the gang lifestyle, right? That allows us to have a relationship with them within the school. And so that plays a big role. Why? Because we've noticed that even on campuses, there'll be a group of, let's say, 20 teenagers that claim one neighborhood, right? Out of that 20, there's probably only like 2 or 3 that are actually bona fide gang members, like really, really from the neighborhood, really got jumped in and are really from the neighborhood, but they're able to control like the other 20. And being that some of the schools in our community have two or three different neighborhoods that go to that same school, obviously there's always issues. And these issues do not start at school. Well, some of the issues start at school. What I mean by that is some of these issues that these communities have had nothing to do with schools. These are conflicts, and these are, these are conflicts that have been taking place within these rivalries for the last 30, 40 years. And we know that changing that is, I don't want to use the word impossible, but I don't like to make it seem like we're changing it, because then we would have the answer, right? And everything would be solved. Obviously, these long-standing rivalries are rivalries for a reason, and they keep going and going and going throughout all these years. One of the biggest things we try to do is show them how to coexist. How do you coexist in a setting with individuals you might not like or get along with? And sometimes I've received pushback on that, but I always tell people, I'm sure we don't always get along with our coworkers. I'm sure we don't always get along with the people that we do certain things with, or we don't see eye to eye with them. But what we do is keep a mission in mind. And if I don't get along with my coworker, or I don't see eye to eye with them, I'm not going to allow that to get in the way of what I got to do for work, right? So we're dealing with young people who are impacted by emotions, impacted by things that have gone on. Their hurts are real. Their hurts are real in regards to their friend just got shot last week by a neighborhood that is being represented at that school also. So their hurts are real. They're angered. They might not know how to process it, but it's real to them. And, for us, we have to respect that. But at the same time, how do we teach them how to coexist? how do we teach them how to navigate through that lifestyle, whether if it's within the school system or even on the streets, right? So our goal is to have a continuous relationship with them, especially in the schools, because we do want a safe school. We do want a safe school, but we also want intervention workers that come from their communities. That way, so that the relationship is just not based from a school campus. It's based also from the community, right? And that's one of the things that we always try to tailor our services towards. What we do now, like Brother Terrence said, you know, there's not always, you know, after we keep things good, what can we do for these kids individually, right? What can we implement in their lives so that they can move forward, so that they can succeed in school, so that they can, you know, have an academic plan that will favor them, not favor them or to where it's easy, but assist them in finishing school, right? So what we do is we try to touch bases with them daily. We do respond to all matters of any kind of violence or any kind of rumors that are going on at the school campus. That was so that we can go on campus and mediate the situations, you know, conduct any conflict resolution you got to conduct. But also too, we also have, you know, there's restorative justice, right? In some of the campuses that we work on, the principals, the deans and the principals have allowed us to kind of tailor the restorative justice program with the curriculum that pretty much is tailored towards the youth that we're working with, right? Where we're pretty much, you know, tailoring that curriculum to fit them, right? To talk about things that will suit them, right? And then we also work with them one-on-one. So working with them one-on-one, we get to know each kid individually more in depth, right? We get to know their needs, where they're coming from, what's going on at home, what's going on with them. But then we'll also try to connect with administrators to see, okay, what academic plans can we come up with to help assist this youth, you know, through their journey through whether middle school or through high school, mainly high school, right? That's the one we service. We do work with a couple middle schools, but it's mainly high school. So we do try to come up with those plans and try to, you know, provide all those services, everything from safety, responding to incidents, everything from running curriculums and having weekly cohorts with them, and just working with them on a one-on-one basis, but also teaching them how to coexist. And I'll just give one example. You know, one time we had a situation at a school where administration, LAUSD administration came down, and these kids had just came back from a summer of it being hectic, shootings between their neighborhoods, loved ones dying, people getting their legs amputated, all that stuff. Now that they're at school, and we had a school administrator telling them, you guys got to get along. We don't care what you've been through. Here on campus, you got to get along. And I disagreed with her. I was like, no, they don't have to get along. You know, that they don't have to get along, but they have to learn how to coexist. And like I shared with the youth, I was like, look, the lifestyle you're living, you're going to have to learn how to coexist with people you don't like, because at the rate you're going, you're going to end up somewhere where you're going to be doing some time. And you're going to get along with people that you never thought you would get along with. So you either learn how to do that now while you're free and learn how to coexist with people that you don't see eye to eye with, and get to understand where they're coming from, give that opportunity, or you're going to learn the hard way and get along with somebody in a prison system that you never thought you'd get along with. So one way or another, it's good to learn it. We try to balance it out and teach these kids, you know, the worldly way of trying to coexist, and also too what the gang culture brings, right? The realities of gang culture. And those are some of the ways we try to help them navigate and help them understand what coexisting is, things of that nature. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of good info in there, and I just kind of want to connect it back to what Terrence had mentioned previously, where you work with the students on like these daily or weekly check-ins, and the students bring it back to you for a stipend. Javier, you mentioned tailoring some kind of curriculum to what students are experiencing. How do you get that work onto a school campus? So it's good that that work is there. It's that intervention that's needed, but Terrence, how did you get the buy-in from the teachers to really take the time to fill out that daily check-in so that way you can keep up with the progress on the students? How were you able to connect with the administrators on a school campus in that way?
And it's really powerful what Javier was saying, you know, as far as understanding the continuity of the community and bringing that understanding to the educational institution. And from a community-based standpoint, standing in that gap and being that educational piece is really rich, right? Because that type of communication and education would not normally be exchanged on behalf of our youth and young adults that are living in deplorable conditions. And so, like Javier and Troy, we're inside the community. Our office is 2 blocks from the school. And ACM has over 70 staff doing public safety efforts, public safety professionals in the District of Columbia alone. And most of our staff are prior incarcerated. 93% of my staff is prior incarcerated, returning citizens. And so we see that as a natural resource inside the community to be able to be the change agents. And so that's what we look to hire. First, it reinstates to the community that there is redemption. Those that are returning citizens are most likely connected to individuals that are most likely to be victims of perpetrators of violence because they're in that space. Transitioning that energy in that space is a public safety entity in its own, and it also assists with mitigating past behaviors that weren't conducive for a life of the past. And so the community sees that individual and they say, okay, they can change, we can change. This is what we want our community to be. Like Brother Akila would always say, from the community-based collective, you cannot have public safety without the public. And so this is what this type of entity brings and this type of energy. And so speaking in that vein, it took ACM 4 years to be able to be connected to the public safety efforts inside the school. And so I remember we did our market survey to find out where the violence was. And Sousa Middle School was the most violent school in the District of Columbia at one point. And so we found out where these things were happening, and we appointed our individuals to go there for public safety, for safe passage. So that was our first modality. And the school said, hey, ACM, get away from us, right? They were scared of us. Rightfully so, because the same individuals that are working at the school doing public safety were the same ones that were perpetrators of violence in the past. And so we had to earn that trust. And so the first year we made sure that our boundaries were outside of the school grounds. And they found out that the youth were getting to school now. There was less fights. And so they said, okay, you can move a little closer. And so we moved a little closer. And then they let us be in front of the school and said, okay, you guys are doing great work. You're in front of the school. There's public safety happening. Nobody's getting shot. Violence has gone down. These grades are going up. Okay, how about we move you inside the school? So it's very incremental, rightfully so. We have to earn the respect of these educational institutions by giving them information, by bringing them statistical data saying this is where the violence is happening. These are the individuals involved in the violence. As a matter of fact, they're in your 6th grade class right now, right? How about we tap into them today to make sure that their social emotional feelings and spaces is secured so the rest of the students don't have to be a victim of some of the things that occurred in the community based off what they were involved in. And so it was an essential walk down. Now, that took 4 years to happen. We are inundated inside these schools now. They come to us and they talk about the budget that they received from the year and how ACM can be included in the budget and what type of services they want from ACM inside their budget. We're the coaches for the basketball team. We're the coaches for the football team, men and women, girls and boys. We provide training to the staff and individuals. They're creating programs for us. We are part of their recruitment to get additional students for the year, right? We sponsor all their trips. We sent them to the entire school to go see The Color Purple, right? These type of things, being a resource and being an asset to the school for things that they desire for their school from a cultural standpoint is how we're able to build that relationship. And so when it came to the paper and the grades, and now we're getting to this 6 years in a game, and the scholars, they always entertain me. They were going to the schools with the money in their hand, and they were waving the money of these little dollar bills that they're receiving, right? And they were flashing it. And so the teachers said, this is not equivalent to the efforts that they're giving us inside these classrooms. ACM, what are you going to do about that? I said, no problem. Let's build a structure. How about you tell us exactly what you want from these scholars? You show us their grades now, and we can move them to a point to where they are just as responsible in the community, because the community is now safe, as in school, right? Let's make sure that these things match. And so they developed the sheet. And then we said, okay, how about you give it to us at the end of the week? And then they bring it to us, and then they'll be able to receive their compensation, because they must attend 2 conflict resolution sessions per week in order to receive the stipend. If they miss 1 per week, then they can't receive it. So it's a level of accountability that they must engage in. And so at the end of the week, they said they'll give it to us. It took about 3 or 4 months for them to be accountable to their own system that they want for the success of their scholars. And then we got back with them and said, hey, you said that you wanted to implement this. How about we do this, because this is the next stage. Our scholars are ready to be great. And so a few months after that, we agreed as a team, we started implementing the sheet. And now our scholars aren't only in conflict resolution in the community and inside the school, they're also in after-school programming for tutoring to ensure that they matriculate through the grades as well as their siblings.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all of that information with me, because I jumped right into stipends. I was like, how do we get the money? Not knowing that there was a buildup of over 6 years getting to this point, working with students even before you were in the schools. So really seeing those steps that you took was extremely helpful. Troy, you are on a school campus. How do you engage outside organizations? What are you looking for? Terrence and Javier both spoke a lot about building trust. How do you see that in community and want to bring that into a school?
Well, I think we've been working on relationships for some time now here in Racine. We're about 80,000 as far as population goes here in Racine. And I feel like we've been doing a lot of good work establishing relationships between the police department and within our school systems, and trying to work together using school resource officers and stuff like that to try and change the narrative and how we see our justice system. Obviously, when we're talking about violence, we have to include our law enforcement and school resource officers in those practices. But what we've seen and what I personally have experienced throughout the time that I've been working at this school here in Racine is that they're establishing trust within us, and it extends from our admin giving us the recognition and giving us the platform to be able to speak on the behalf of our community, on the behalf of our students that we work with on a daily basis, building that rapport with these students and be able to speak to their experiences and their concerns in spaces where they'll never get to, or they don't know how to articulate themselves in those spaces. And we're able to do that for them. And I think that that is the biggest piece for us to be able to improve our ways on how we're trying to address these services. And so the main thing that I can say is with our students here, when they see police officers, they still can look to us, and we have to have that level of separateness when we're talking about this, because still we have those stigmas that exist, and we literally are one of the people that are in the building that represent both. And like I said, teachers and admin that are in the school institutions, that they're there for education purposes, they don't often have the opportunity to develop those relationships like we do. And so we literally have many hats. We have a daily, like I said, collaboration with all of these services. And I think it's most important when you're thinking about implemented in your city and your school, that you're having these conversations. But a lot of this information has to come from the families. And so that's the other piece is we talk to the families a lot. And so it's very important to understand how they see the law enforcement, how they see maybe the admin, the student institutions, and how they see their kids in these settings, and what their kids are feeling, what they're coming home telling their parents. And so we just want to keep these conversations rolling, because that's the information that we need to be able to articulate different ways to assist and be of assistance, right, to these students who need the advocacy, which is, I feel like before we were involved in this kind of scenario, they weren't able to articulate for themselves, causing more issues, obviously disrespecting authoritative figures and stuff like that, because they're trying to get their point across, but they don't have the ways to do so. They don't have the people that can speak for them and understand them and how they speak within their community. You know what I mean? And as far as a culture thing, every single last community connectors, there's 10 of us. We share different, avenues within our community, but we all, are learning from each other, learning from experience, and we're able to, be that person that these students can rely on when they're going through their problems, when they're going through their structure, as when they're switching from school to school, whether it's middle school to high school, and transitioning. We're just utilizing so many different ways that I feel like it's just about building that rapport, building that trust, and obviously taking all that information to conversations like what we're doing now, and pushing it.
Yeah, definitely. I know Terrence had mentioned that. Javier, I know you're from the community that you still work in. It's really building that trust and the whole idea of a credible messenger. We're sharing this message because we've lived this experience, and this is how we're connecting with you to get you the resources and services you need, because this is what we would have needed at the time when we were going through those. So it's really good to see that you guys are connecting with them on that level, making sure these community violence intervention workers are from the community and bringing all the resources onto a school campus. We've talked a lot about what CVI, what some of your practices look like in a school setting, outside of a school setting. But Javier, let's start with you. Can you identify a challenge that you've run into trying to get your work onto a school campus and how you addressed it with administration?
Man, so for Terrence, hey, thank you for sharing your journey, bro. For me, I could say that I was blessed in a sense to where when I first came home from prison and I started doing gang intervention, I was working with the agency that already had MOUs with the school system, with the LAUSD school system, with the schools around us, right? From there, though, becomes accountability from you. Like, you have to be accountable even to yourself and to others to make sure that you, whatever MOU is set in place, right, you have to carry out that MOU, the responsibility for that MOU. It's very important. So, because then it comes down to, yes, you're representing your agency, but you're also representing the work that you do, because, people are going to remember you representing that agency. And that was a standard that I always had to hold high. Like, okay, I'm going to be here on behalf of this agency. They were able to get the doors open for us to come on campus. Now I'm working in the school, in the community where I grew up at. Like, who doesn't want to help their own community, right? Once you've made that decision to want to help, right? It's like it's like a dream come true, like, man, I get to help my own community out. And so, after years of doing the work on the campuses, and obviously, like I said, just making sure that you hold that you work with integrity, that you hold a high standard for yourself to make sure that you represent what you're doing well. When I decided to open up my own agency, obviously I wanted to respect. I was able to build good relationship with principals. I was able to build good relationship with deans who ended up becoming principals at schools that I wanted to work with counselors. It almost seemed like the right timing, right? The church I go to, two of the principals out of the 4 high schools that we work at go to that church. It almost seemed like everything fell into place, right? And then the main school that I wanted to work with, the dean became the principal, and I did a lot of work with that dean throughout the past 13, 14 years, right? So it seems like everything fell into place. But one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that we all agreed upon it. Let's do things right. Yes, we'll allow you on our campus as a visitor, but until we get that MOU process going, there's always going to be limits, right? And I agree with that, right? Because one thing I want to honor their positions as principals, as deans, as school administrators, and also too, I want my agency to do everything correctly. you know, because it's a model the way we should do things in life, right? And when the need was there, yes, they would allow me to come onto their school as a visitor to do one-on-ones with certain kids, especially with their parent consent and all that stuff. But it was doing everything right, doing everything to where fill out the MOU, turn everything you got to turn in for your MOU to be able to be processed. You know, and then then my wife becomes a teacher. So it's almost like everything fell into place. But like I said, just doing everything right, doing everything according to the way it should be done. That way, so that when we're on campus, all the liabilities are met. Everything is met. All the standards are met in regards to, you know, insurances, MOUs, everybody being, you know, fingerprinted, us being, you know, as an agency doing things right. But also too, I think one of the bigger challenges, and this is out of respect, now I was servicing some of the schools that the former agency that I worked with was servicing also. So I didn't want this to become a competition. It had nothing to do with that, you know? So it's about still respecting the former agency that I worked with, right? Because we both belong to the Los Angeles Violence Intervention Coalition. We want to respect each other's work. But we do know that there's enough room to service youth, man, because there's a lot of youth going through. There's a lot of schools that are in need of services, right? So just like, I don't think one agency should feel that they can do everything. We also have to respect the fact there's other agencies that can also do great work, but we also got to respect other agencies too, and to make sure that we keep that collaboration going. And it's not a competition. It's about servicing the community and servicing those in need. And for me, that was always something aside from making sure that we submitted the proper MOU, submitted all the right documentation, making sure that our collaborative partners that also go into the schools make sure that this isn't a competition. We're here to work together. We're here to work together. Yes, we have our purpose and you have yours, you know, and however we can collaborate, we will, but we got to make sure that we, you know, make sure that we do what we have to do. And also just keeping your accountability in the community and coming in the community, making sure that our LTOs, we use a term here in Los Angeles called license to operate, making sure that our license to operate is always upheld, that we're operating within every realm that the doors open to us, and we're operating in a way with integrity and doing the work the way it should be done. And then also to staying in our lane. You know, we're there for a purpose and we don't try to go outside of that and stay within our lane. And those are some of the challenges. And of course, you know, dealing with the youngsters, right? You know, some of the youngsters are firecrackers sometimes. Sometimes like, you're like, you know, you really almost have to physically restrain them down because they're ready to be on attack mode. You know, they're ready to do what they got to do. And so those are some of the challenges. And then another one too, I think within the school system is sometimes, you know, and this is not to knock educators, but I think sometimes there's educators who, all right, as long as they're not committing problems, I could care less if they're getting straight F's. And it's not, no, we don't agree with that.
Yeah, that's not the way to go.
Yeah,
Definitely.
no, like, yes, we don't want them to create problems, but we also are here to assist them through their educational journey.
Right.
And all that. So, you know, those are just some of the things, some of the challenges that we went through. And you know, thank you for allowing me to share.
When I first started with the Urban Peace Institute, I heard all about this license to operate. I was like, how do I get this license? Like, what do I got to do? Somebody, you know, get me certified, and not understanding that LTO is really that accountability and credibility that you're building with community, with these youngsters, keeping up with what the things that they like. I know we talked before we had this conversation, we talked a lot about social media and how that's impacting students, and how we really have to keep in mind that's not something that I grew up with. I don't know about you guys. It's not something I grew up with too much. So really understanding the dynamics that plays into violence on school campus and how to work with that. I love how you spoke on accountability within your organization and within yourself, because as we know, school funds are usually very limited. So once you get that money, once you got that MOU, it's important to maintain your accountability and credibility so that this work can grow, because as soon as there's that one hiccup, something's not working out, CVI organizations may drop the ball, or you get in partnership with that wrong one, that funding can disappear really quickly. So keeping yourself accountable is extremely important. Terrence, has there been any experience that you've had with a challenge getting onto a school campus? Has it always been pretty easy, or is there anything you can speak of on how you overcame any obstacles?
I think getting on the school campus, we were able to use, so our conflict resolution manual was copywritten in partnership with the American University's Department of International Conflict Resolution and Peace. And so it's study-based and it's culturally specific. And so that's the diamond that we move into the schools with, because we know that there's a gap in conflict resolution that's culturally specific. And it's a train the trainer model. So that really opened the door for us to have a conversation with the schools. There's been many a times, and I say probably for each school, I've gone up there and I sat in the chair, reception chair, and I sit there for an hour or for two. And then they, say, hey, can you come back later, right? And, humbling myself, knowing that I'm not there for any purpose but to change the outcome of violence in my community. I show up the next day. And then I'll show up again. And I will continue to show up. And so the mindset of ACM is that we go in with the win. We don't accept no for an answer. We know what we want to do. We're going to do what we said we're going to do. It's just in what manner are we going to be able to manifest the change that we want to see? And so getting into the schools just took persistence, and we planned from the beginning. So it wasn't really a struggle, but for some, it could be a aggravation, right? And not having any big eyes and little U's, humbling ourselves to know that we have to do things for something greater than us, should set that place to make sure that you're going with the win. Now, there's other complications, of course. Brother Javier spoke about the youth, and I'll speak about a situation last year or the year before last. We had two young ladies that were in conflict, and this deals with us and the school, right? And they fought in school. And so they fought in school again, and they fought in school again, and they fought for like 4 days straight. And so on a Friday, a young lady that was from down the street, she's not really from that specific neighborhood that we work in and that we are, but she goes to that school. And so 50 of her family members came, they blocked off the bus routes. And this is city bus, and they blocked off the streets, and they were looking for the family of the young lady that their daughter was in conflict with. And so they fought again on that intersection, and our team was there, safe passage. And surprisingly, law enforcement didn't respond to this, even though the streets are blocked off. So it was entirely on ACM to try to mitigate this, get kids to school, and so that they can get out of school. And so the end of that day, I got a phone call from the community, and it was a promise that it was going to happen again. So I had to jump into my car, and as soon as school ended, and I got a blacked out car, right? Got to stay safe. And the school administration called me. I told them when I pulled up, and literally as I pulled up, the little girl and her kid, her siblings jumped in my car. And I drove off, and I rode around the neighborhood around the back, because her house is 2 doors down from my office, to make sure that I can get her home safely, and that there wouldn't be another riot. And so finally, these two young ladies, we got them in our office, and we got them to squash the beef. They were bruised. I mean, they looked like they had been fighting continuously, and they had been fighting continuously. And so they agreed to stop the internet beef, and then they agreed to squash their beef, but their family members were now involved. And so the family said that this isn't over, and y'all are going to fight every single day, and we're going to block this off, and this is going to be a melee. And so we told the school, we said, hey, these young ladies, what can we do, for these young, they said, okay, as long as they don't fight in school, the moment they get off of school property, they're no longer our responsibility. And so ACM, we're parallel to law enforcement. We don't work for law enforcement. We don't work with law enforcement. We work as a complementary to law enforcement. They have their job, we do. When AKs in 7.62 are flying, ACM is not jumping in front of those bullets without a vest, right? That's law enforcement's job. But when we know that there's going to be connection to possible death, we reached out to the school and asked them to reach out to the resource officer and law enforcement to be able to give these individuals a safe passage to and from school. And so it was a complication being able to triangulate those services to ensure the safety of these young ladies. We eventually were able to get the families inside of our office, and by our credibility in the community, we were able to stop the beef. And these two young ladies are now friends because of what they went through together, right? And their families are pretty much in a Cold War in that space. So that's just some of the complications of being community-based and having to utilize the educational institution as a modality, as well as law enforcement, right? We are willing to collaborate for the public safety of the community, but what does that look like when we come to the table, and who's going to take ownership of the responsibility of life, hurt, and continual safety?
Yeah, a lot of times I think violence is generational. It continues on and really breaking that cycle. And a lot of times, a lot of these families attend the same school. So that history is there, spills into community, and you guys stepping in and really figuring out when does this stop and how can we help stop it. That is important work of community violence intervention. So thank you for highlighting that story. Keeping in mind the time that we have and allowing some time for questions, I'm going to end with one final question, hoping you can all address it, but we'll start with Troy. Troy, what are some best practices that CVI agencies can bring to a school campus?
First things first is we need to be able to assess where the student is, right? We need to do a fair enough job to figure out what are their needs. What do they need as far as like to get to school? Terrence talked about transportation, safety is obviously number one when we're talking about our children. But as far as like for us, for intervening and stuff like that, how do we intervene? When do we intervene? What resources do we have to intervene, and does it interfere with education? And that's one of the challenges that I was going to be able to speak on. Obviously, we're short for time, but the challenge of during the school day, we want the kids to be educated with the curriculum that is given. However, life skills can be just as important, and that's why we're having these meetings right now. But I would say definitely speak to your community in many ways as possible. Take notes. We don't know everything. We all have different experiences, but the more experiences that we can put together and figure out what is something that works for all of us or what works for most of us, and what are those things that we're not addressing, and do we have to ask more questions? Do we have to figure those things out together? And it's all a collaborative effort. Another thing that Terrence talked about is just that parallel of services. You know what I mean? No one gets the credit. We all want to see kids thrive in ways that are unimaginable. However, it looks different for all of us. And success to you is different from the person next to me and the person behind me and the person in front of me. But as long as we're all passionate and we're on the same page, and people know how much you care before you tell them what they need to do, and you're disciplining them in different ways. Obviously, accountability is love, but we have to understand that for first things first, we have to be definitely the people of change, and we have to be accountable, and we have to hold ourselves accountable, so therefore we can hold others accountable. So I would just start there, really just start there, just to really get to know your community inside and out. Don't stop at the schools. Find community centers, find certain parts of your city who are maybe having different needs and stuff like that, and figure out what those kids are looking at every day, their everyday experiences, and how that go intertwines with what they're experiencing at school as well. So it's just all the information thing, and people getting connected and figuring out ways together.
Thank you, Troy. Javier, you want to hop in with some of your best practices?
So our best practices just for us is just making sure that we have that strong relationship with those that we're working with. I think that sometimes the youth are on our radar when they do something wrong, right? Whenever they have to be called onto the carpet, right? What we try to do is make sure that our relationship is an ongoing thing. Our relationship with them is an ongoing thing, right? A daily thing, an ongoing thing, whether it's in the school or outside the school. That's one of our main goals. And also to just allowing them to be active, being active with them even in the community, right? Because they tend to build that trust with you. And like Brother Choi said, love is a powerful thing, right? When they feel that you really care, when they feel that you have that consistency, when they feel that you really care, that you really have love for their well-being, you're just not trying to tell them what to do all the time, but you're actually there for them, you actually conversate with them. And then an important thing is, like a lot of us, we're part of the community. They see us function. They see the way we function, right? They see the way we encounter issues. They see us with our families at the park. They see us at picnics. They see us at gatherings, right? They see the way we treat one another. They see me when I see my homeboys my age, right? Like does Javier, or some people still call me Tiny, right? They'll be like, does Tiny, once he sees his homeboys his age, does he start acting like them, right? Does he start with that same lingo, that same talk, or that same attitude? Or is he the Javier that still has love for his homeboys have love for him, and he's still here, but responds differently to things, right? And I say that because we got to remember that these youth, and I can only speak for the ones that we work with and over here, the issues that we have over here in LA with the gang issues and all that, right? Because I always respect what other people are going through in other cities, so I don't want to speak on behalf of them, right? For that one voice, that one positive voice that they hear daily, there's 30 other voices daily guiding them in a different direction, guiding them in the hood stuff, the neighborhood stuff, the standards of living that lifestyle, right? So it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we see daily, but I think that being consistent in their life, and not just being in their life when we have to apply correction, is a big thing. And those are some of our best practices, because if they feel that you love them, and that they know you love them, they'll make an effort to respond back to you with things that you might require them for their best own benefit, right? So
Right. Once you show an investment in their well-being, they're going to want to show up for you. I think that's really important when working, especially with youth, really being that person for them. Thank you, Javier. Terrence, you have a question in the Q&A box, so I'll let you respond to that question so we can get onto that portion of our conversation. Prior to this webinar, we had 4 foundational steps to integrate CVI in schools, but I really want to touch on some of the things that we spoke on in our conversation today, because I really believe, coming from you all, these are really key takeaways and highlights of the work that needs to be done, and you all spoke on it, and that is building trust and earning the respect of the community, the youth who are in your community, then the work that you're doing being reflected amongst their morale and taking that to school with them, and understanding that this all takes time. This isn't going to happen. Stipends aren't going to come in a month of doing the work. That's really taking time and getting the work to that point. So those are things that I took away from this conversation. I am always excited to learn from you, to speak with you guys and share this space with you. We did also put together 4 foundational steps to integrate CVI in schools. Every community has a school, and every school is in a community. So now it's really time to connect those two with these foundational steps. That's highlighting the importance of multi-sector collaboration and partnerships, establishing a network of local partners and organizations, identify gaps in student safety, create clear roles and responsibilities with CVI organizations and partners to prevent, reduce violence, and address the whole child needs. Next slide. So prevention is an important part of community safety. Many of us are familiar with anti-bullying efforts, Red Ribbon Week, and during my time in school was the DARE program. So while those reach a great number of students, we really need to advocate and reach for students who may need intervention efforts. A lot of that was discussed today on mediating fights that can be generational, fights that not only happen in school, but out of school, and making sure that community is present. And like Terrence said, working parallel with law enforcement, not as law enforcement. So now that we have an idea of what the efforts can look like in a school setting, here are a few of the benefits that school collaborations with CVI partners can look like. So these are programs like Safe Passage, crisis response, mediation, mentoring, restorative justice, which we all spoke on today. These efforts prevent and reduce violence, reduce student exposure and interaction with law enforcement, connect credible messengers with students at school, and support administrators and teachers, and provide wraparound trauma-based services for students and their families. Next slide. So that's the end of our discussion today. I hope you are motivated and enthusiastic about the partnerships with CVI organizations. And I will pass it back to James to open up the Q&A.
First of all, Catherine and panel, man, that was so amazing, informative, and really brought the importance of CVI organizations and schools to, you know, an amazing level. We often see a lot of very technical tools, but this is the practicality. These practical examples are things that schools have been asking for, and hopefully you all are able to really pick up on the knowledge that's been dropped by these amazing individuals. So first, yeah, thank you very much. Couple of questions that we want to get to real quick. First one was from Stephanie, and please feel free to either raise your hand, put questions in your chat box or in the Q&A box. But Stephanie had asked for Terrence, you mentioned that the schools identify students that could benefit from CVI services. How do the schools, I would say in DC and the schools that you're working with, how do your schools that you're partnering with, how do they identify the students that CVI services should be touching?
And so their initial, so when we talk about educational institutions, and I can say this for the district, they're penalized for scholars not being in school. They're penalized for suspension. They're penalized for expulsion. And so we kind of did our research on that. How can we be an asset to the educational institution in which we partner with? That's kind of like our premise, period. We're not going to work with somebody that we can't be an asset to. And so we target individuals that are in expulsion first, and then we target individuals that are in suspension, and then we target individuals that aren't going to school. And we say that we have the ability to get these individuals in school. And instead of suspending them or in-school suspension or expulsion, how about you allow us to have conflict resolution for this specific subset? And granted, these individuals are in conflict with each other, right? They're usually suspended together because they're in conflict. But with our credibility and the space that we provide, we have them in the same space together, learning conflict resolution. And so when we first started giving conflict resolution, our classes are triggers and soothers, strengths and weaknesses, visible identity, the social construct of identity group. And we found out, yes, it'll mitigate the conflict, but they still don't see each other as brothers and sisters. And so we worked with Bowie State University to have a cultural empowerment presentation that lets them know that they're kings and queens and their history, things that they've never heard. Their family members don't even know where they come from, right? And how, you know, Africa was the 13th dynasty, right? We started giving that before the conflict resolution. And so then now they understood that they are a tribe. The same folks that they're in conflict with are a tribe, and they are brothers and sisters in a meaningful place. And so by us being able to keep those individuals in the school, the budget for the school went up exponentially. And we applied for funding, and this was a Q&A question. We applied for funding outside of the school to facilitate the services that we intended to provide. And we were granted that. So we essentially applied for funds for the school. in addition to bringing them more funding for having the participation of the scholars. And so now going forward, they can use their funds that they have to supply the resources that we provide.
Thank you very much. We also had a question, and I'm gonna put this one to Troy, if you don't mind, around, you know, the age range, for the students, specifically in the middle school, but it seems like it can vary, but how did you all determine, the focus of the work that you all are doing in Racine?
Well, like I said, we're pretty much moving all our schools to the K-8 model, which is in line with like our goal and vision of taking care of the entire family. We have a lot of families who have multiple kids, and so when they're in our K-8 building, there may be a student that is referred to us that is in the 8th grade or something. They're dealing with some things in and out of the school. We work backwards as well, so maybe that kid is in the 8th grade and we're working with him extensively, but we extend our service throughout their family. So they may have a brother or sister in elementary school that has not yet did anything to be in the criminal justice system or have habitual classroom disruptions or anything like that of that sort. But we try to get a proactive start to helping that family curb that same issue that the 8th grader may have within their household, right? And so we pretty much want to work through the entire family, and the age really doesn't play a huge role because, you know, obviously development starts at the beginning, right? So we try to maintain a level of accuracy with our work and our practice. But I like to attach myself to the foundational pieces, which is elementary, which you know, proceeds on what they're doing in middle schools and beyond. So I like to work with kids as early as 3rd grade. But it can even go lower than that sometimes, just based on the needs and the services of the family.
Very good. We have time for about one more question, and I don't know if there is another question in there, but if there is, feel free to put it in the chat or the questions. And I know there was somebody who had asked about the name of the conflict resolution model that Terrence uses. Is that on your website, Terrence?
Yes, it's on our website. It's the ACM Conflict Resolution Manual, Train the Trainer, and it's it is an entire curriculum.
Sounds good. All right. I don't believe I see any other questions. Prior to us signing off, though, I did put a couple of links in the chat. Please sign up for our school-based community of practice. If you like Terrence now, there's going to be another opportunity to connect with him next month. We're going to be doing a webinar focusing around how CVI organizations can partner with the schools to engage families of individuals that are utilizing CVI services. But please stay connected to us. We're going to share training opportunities to connect with experts in the field, funding opportunities, and obviously, if you have questions focusing on school-based CVI approaches, we also added a link there to put in your training and technical assistance request. This is really important for us so that we can really prioritize the types of experts that we're going to provide to you all through webinars such as these. We're also going to have, you know, Ask the Experts, where we're going to bring in folks like Troy, Javier, Catherine, Terrence, Jessica, and you know, these are folks that are on the ground doing this work that we want to connect you with. So, you know, please stay in touch. I also provided the link to the school, the Stop School-Based website that we have for you. That's where the webinar will be, as well as the PowerPoint that Urban Peace Institute created for us. Thank you very much, Catherine and Jessica. You guys rocked it. This was a really terrific webinar. And again, thank you all. Yes, those are the QR codes if you want to snap the QR codes as well. Again, thank you all for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you all again next month. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone have a good day.
Take care.